In the early aughts, if you turned on Much Music, you probably caught one of Skye Sweetnam's music videos playing. She was a major label pop rock star, signed to Capitol Records when she was only 15 years old. She opened for Britney Spears before she put out her first record. But as the music industry changed and record labels' heyday started to change as well, Skye made a big change. She formed her own band, a hard rock band with some folks from her pop past. The band's called Sumo Cyco. She's the lead vocalist. And since then, that has really taken off. I can't stop these shivers crawling through my fingers, pulling at these triggers. Come on, their latest record is called Neon Void. It's out October 24th. I find this story really interesting in the history of Canadian music, and I'm happy to say that Skye Sweetnam's here to talk to me about it. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Nice
so happy to be here.
I find your story so interesting. Like, not everybody has a story like yours at all. Like, not everybody gets the sign to the big American major label thing, you know, when they're 14 or 15 at all. Mm-hmm. And then to watch you turn it into, we'll talk about it all, but to watch you turn it into what you've turned it into sort of on your own terms has been really inspiring to see.
Oh, thanks, Tom. That's kind words. I appreciate it. Yeah. We were just remarking on how long it's been, and we're around the same age. So seeing the changes within the industry has been quite a journey.
We came in at the end of something great, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Came in, no, it may be better now. We'll talk about that. So let's go back to the beginning. So talk us through the story that you get sort of discovered in a hair salon.
I just, on like a random occasion, was walking down downtown Bolton,
Ontario.
Yeah, and it's not really downtown. Let's just say it's small town, like one street.
It's the other street.
Yeah, it's the other street. And so I got flagged down by the hairstylist just seeing me walk by. I was like, "Oh, Skye, I just had your grandmother in here. She was just talking about how great your singing's going and you're doing recording." And I was like, "Yeah, I actually have my demo right here. Do you want to hear it?" Threw it on in the hair salon, and all the ladies getting their hair done were all watching me kind of bop along to my music. And one of the women there was getting her hair done to head to a birthday party where she was going to meet with her brother, who happened to be like a big entertainment lawyer in Toronto.
Like for some real people.
Yes. And like, you know, this was like such a random, occurrence of events that she had the demo. We're like, yes, wow. Take the demo, give it to your brother. He loved what he heard and invited me into the office and was just like, okay, I got to introduce you to a bunch of people. And one of them was a manager, Zach Warner, you may remember from Canadian Idol.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was working with a young producer named James Robertson. And James was a 21-year-old, like total music genius, could play every instrument, lived in his dad's basement, and his dad was a producer as well. And so he had like all of his dad's inherited gear. And it was like a basement of for me, like, wonder, where it's like there was just stuff on every single piece of the wall, had like a poster from a band or another keyboard or another instrument hanging up. And that's where I wrote the record Noise from the Basement in James's parents' basement.
And then they get it to the big label? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So once I had worked with James for probably like, I would say like 6 to 8 months, we kind of started developing the sound that we felt really fit what we were kind of really liking, but all of us, the whole team. And at that point, Zach was like, okay, we got to send this out and start sending it to all the record labels and see what comes back. And I had done the same process with my first demo, but I actually got a rejection letter from EMI that I ended up being signed under the EMI umbrella. So just one of those stories of like, you always got to keep trying because you never know when you're going to, fit it right in the spot that you need to,
But eventually they get in touch with you. And when they decide to sign you to, I mean, let's play a little bit actually, because it's worth hearing.
Hey, could you see I want you by the way I push you away? Yeah, don't judge me tomorrow by the way I'm acting today.
Do you mind listening to that?
You know what? I don't mind. I don't mind at all. It's part of my history. But yeah, that song was one I remember doing rehearsals days on end, playing that single song over and over again before we did some late night TV shows because we had to perfect the song. So it was like 2 weeks of rehearsals of one song.
Well, I mean, I should point out that's Tangled Up in Me from Skye's album Noise from the Basement. When you say like late night TV shows, you were doing like The Tonight Show.
Yes.
It sold 500,000 copies. You were in Teen Vogue. You were in other big publications. And for Capitol, you were considered a priority artist. What did they tell you? Did they tell you you're going to be the next blank or the next that? What did they use those kind of names?
They never said like the next this or that, but the president was definitely like, we're gonna get you to the top of the industry. You're gonna win all these Grammys. Like he was just, to be honest, for someone that age, you just should take it day by day. Like,
Did you get wrapped up in it a little bit?
I totally did. I mean, it was like a whirlwind. If you can imagine being, 14 years old, being flown out first class to Hollywood, and then you get to go up to one of the most iconic looking buildings in Hollywood, which is the Capitol Records building.
Which for people to know is this sort of circular building, like a stack of records on top of one another.
It's made to look like a stack of records, and you get in there. They take you up to the top floor. You're in these gorgeous offices with like every artist you could ever imagine, on the walls.
Yeah.
And
you're from a small town in Ontario.
Yeah, and it was like, whoa, like this is nuts. And I remember one thing they asked me is like, Skye, we love the demo, we love the music. What is it going to take for you to sign with our record label?
Wow.
And I'm just like, trying to be cute. And I'm like, maybe some like chocolate chip cookies, sweeten the deal a little bit. And we went out to the Ivy, a restaurant in Hollywood that night, and on the table was like piles of chocolate chip cookies. So they like knew like how to,
Freaking me out a little bit.
I know. I was like,
I know it's a sweet story, but it's freaking me out a little bit,
It's pretty crazy. So.
And then you went out with Britney Spears before you had a record out?
It was pretty insane. The weird trajectory was right before the Britney tour, the only other tour I had done was a tour of summer camps in like the northern states where we just had these pop-up stages and would play for a bunch of kids at summer camp. So it went from that, which was still in itself kind of like a big jump from anything I'd done before, to, arenas with one of the biggest superstars in the world at the time. Yeah. And the touring was amazing. I mean, it was any girl's dream. I think I was 15, 16 at the time. So it was like the coolest thing. Like all my friends were like, yeah, we're going to come and see you and get on your tour bus. And it was a whirlwind so fast. I remember having a ton of fun.
Was it fun? Really fun?
Just so much fun.
Okay, it wasn't bad.
No.
When do you start? This is a really hard question to ask. When do you start as a child? Because you're a child, man. Getting the feeling that this isn't working out the way that they want or you want. Like, because there's a you and I were talking about this before we turned the microphones on. Sort of cryptically, we said we came around at the change of a music industry, meaning that when Skye and I were younger, it was CDs and people were still selling records, and I think Napster and file sharing and MP3 starts coming around like in a big way as you are expected to blow up.
Yes.
Is a couple of questions. Is that the cause of what happened? How does a young person deal with that sort of changing relationship with all this pressure and expectation that was on them? Maybe we'll just do those two. Yeah.
So I specifically remember being in the offices at Capitol Records, and we were discussing my new record coming out, and an intern kind of walked in and was kind of offering his 2 cents on everything we were talking about. And he kept mentioning MP3s. And like at that time, I had never heard that term before. Yeah. Like, what is an MP3? And he's like, oh, it's going to change everything. It's a compressed file format. Like, you can share music like on the internet. And
get out of here, nerd. You were doing that kind of stuff, spraying him with a little water bottle, Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, okay, whatever. And I remember, everyone kind of playing it off like, yeah, but like, but this record's still going to be big, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember when we were about to put it out, the conversation came about of copy controlling the CD, meaning that you wouldn't be able to burn it off of a computer. Like,
you wouldn't be able to rip the audio to your computer to then burn it and duplicate it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in some weird ways, I almost was like, well, if the kid, like, I went to my friend's house in my breaks from my crazy schedule. And that's when it really kind of sunk in when I saw my friend and her younger brothers being like, oh, what song do you want to listen to? And I'd be like, this so-and-so track. And then they would be able to pull it up in 2 seconds and download it from like LimeWire or Napster. And I remember like, you just got that? Like you just downloaded it. And they're like, yep, that's how it is. And I don't know if I was like truly prepared at how fast the speed of how the industry would need to adapt was going to be. I kind of was so naive, and that's all I knew was, of course, everyone's going to buy CDs, and that's the way the industry works.
What strikes me is that you were just very young. Like, were you bummed at all that this hadn't turned out the way that you had been promised?
Yeah, well, I think what happened was the record labels were all kind of scrambling because they could realize a tidal wave was kind of coming and they had to adapt. So they did a lot of restructuring at my label. And that's when I was in the middle of writing my second album. I had some crazy, amazing collaborators. I was working with a group called The Matrix, who had just done Avril Lavigne's biggest record that she broke out with. They had just worked on Korn. I was working with Tim Armstrong from the punk band Rancid.
You had a feature on a Tim Armstrong, right?
Yeah.
I know that.
So I had a lot of stuff going on in LA, and I was really excited about that second record. And then I remember getting the call right before the record was about to be mastered. So the record's done. I'm like so excited to get this thing out. And they're like, oh, your marketing guy got let go today. Then 2 days later, oh, the A&R team's, moving on. Oh, the president just got replaced with another gentleman. And that's when I was like, okay, this is not gonna go well. Like if every single point of contact I have at the record label is now being switched up, they're probably gonna, change their strategy here. I might not be on the trajectory I thought I was gonna be on. And that's when I kind of realized as my, first tours were in like a big bus with my face on the side. The next tours I had organized, I kind of decided, okay, well, I still want to put the album out. How am I going to make this happen? And I kind of went back to my friends in Canada that were part of the umbrella of the larger label that were still able to license out the music. So I still had the opportunity for the record to see the light of day. And that was really important to me. But the tour budget, I was down to now a minivan driving my own band around, Northern Ontario. Very different experience when I was doing that at 18, 19 versus, a few years prior.
It would not surprise me, and I would be very understanding of you if you just said in that moment, like, hey, I was promised the moon from being singing in a hair salon to, truly like what the movies promise, which is that you're, it's like in A Star Is Born, right?
It's so true. It felt like a weird fairy tale that it almost made me believe at such a young age. Like, oh yeah, you just have to dream something and then it'll magically come true.
And then it doesn't happen, and I can only imagine how crushing that is.
It was actually surprising. I think the fact that I was just at that age of gaining independence as a young woman, like, having my own driver's license, my car, I could finally be with my friends and go out for the night. I was turning 19 and so I could go party with my friends. So there was that element that I had missed being like full-time working throughout my high school years, that I was still really looking forward to what life had to offer, still really looking forward to like the adventures that were still to come. And I think that being at that age and having that transition happen then was probably the best scenario for me, because I had a little side of me that still romanticized the idea of going out on a road trip with some of your best friends in a band and just doing it the old-fashioned way, playing clubs, loving music, writing songs. And I still saw that for myself,
So let's listen to some Sumo Cyco. Take a listen.
Profits a martini with a twist. Are we all villains? Are we all villains? Am I the only one that sees the world we live in? Are we all villains? Are we all villains? It's got me thinking. Are we all villains?
Just talk us through not like the steps of it, but like the decision to not stop, the decision to like actually like, I'm going to take control of my own music. I'm going to work with these folks I've been in a band with for a really long time, but we're going to make the music that we want to make, and we're going to do things the way we want to do them without everyone else's expectations on us.
I think that there was a lot of my personality on the road that was really kind of rebelling against certain aspects of the traditional music industry. For instance, you'd get to a photo shoot and there'd be like 5 people telling you what to look like. And as someone that's young and trying to like define themselves and figure out who they are, it felt like a little bit oppressive at some times of what I wanted to do creatively when I was at such a big company, right? So this was like my chance to have that freedom of like, you get to design whatever genre, however you want to look. Your music videos can be whatever you want them to be. And that freedom got me really, really excited. And at the time, I had kind of reconnected with my guitarist who was playing with me throughout the Skye Sweetnam years, named Matt Drake. And he had learned during that time how to self-produce on the computer, and he was getting really, really good. So I was like, let's just like write some songs and make some music videos and throw them on the internet and just see what people say. And at this point, I'd been kind of doing like an amateur YouTube channel for a few years. And I really adapted that quickly. I was doing the MySpace thing. I was doing YouTube. So I was really adapting to the new social media and the technology that was coming out that way. Because I thought it was so cool how I could have a thought or an idea, make it, upload it right away, and all the fans would get that directly without all those middlemen. I was so used to having to get approvals through, and then it would take weeks, and then the song might not get out. So yeah, it was super liberating and exciting to kind of be part of that in a way. And once we started gaining a little bit of momentum with the fans online, we got our first opportunity to play a show. And we actually played quite a big show for our first show. We were invited. One of Matt's friends was a promoter that was working, I think it's called Rebel now, but it used to be Sound Academy over at the Docks.
Big room in Toronto.
Yeah, big room. And they had an act that one of their opening acts had a trouble coming through the border into Canada, and they needed somebody to fill in like really quickly. So we got on a show opening for the band, the Hollywood Undead, and went super well. And all the kids were like rocking, and I was like, "Ooh, this feels good! Like I want more.
Good, hey?
I want more of this. This is feeling fun." And I think that just sparked in me that love, that performer that was always living inside me, that just wanted those opportunities to be in front of a crowd and show them what I could do.
I don't mean to talk so much about the early days, but like, 'cause the Sumo Cyco records is great, and it's heavy, and it's not what I was expecting at all. But I'm just hung up on the story. Like, what did you learn from that early sort of education you had?
I really was able to manage my expectations pretty well for someone that, kind of started off, a gate, like going 60 miles an hour. And I realized as kind of things rolled back on the second record, how lucky I really was to even get those opportunities, have those experiences. I realized that every little bit of success that we were able to gain with Sumo Cyco, I valued it that much more, because I had kind of realized how quickly it can go away. And so when we started gaining a fan base, and I remember one of the first things we decided to do was we had won a competition in Toronto called Indie Week. And the prize, if you won this Battle of the Bands, was you got to fly. They would fly you out to Ireland, and you'd get to play a showcase in Ireland. And because we had won this awesome trip, we were like, well, we need to take advantage of this. So let's try to crowdfund with our fans for anyone that lives in UK and do some more shows. And maybe they'll give a few bucks so it can help us to get over and play a bunch of shows in mainland UK. And the fans came out and they supported. And I was just like, wow, like it is so cool that we were able to make this happen. We ended up doing our first overseas tour before we had even toured, North America. And I was like, wow, like if you have an idea, like sometimes you just need to like throw it into the universe and it'll actually work out. So once we started realizing that power of just a few fans that were dedicated enough to want to support us. It was really off to the races from there of like, what idea do you have? What do you want to make happen?
Yeah. What kept you going? Like, what keeps you making music? What kept you going?
I absolutely just love creating music. I was writing lyrics to a song on the drive here. Like we had the song blaring, I was just like writing down lyrics.
Gotta talk to some Newfoundland jean jacket guy, ruining my day.
Yeah, but I gotta give credit to Matt. He's my partner in life and partner in the band, and he grew up, the opposite way, right? He started in punk bands in his little small town until he was able to get out of the little small town and play a little bigger city, and then a little bigger city. And he always really encouraged me to realize what true art really meant to people, and it didn't necessarily have to be the biggest, most popular, most sparkly thing. Sometimes the coolest art is the stuff that is like your little back pocket band that only you know about, and it's so cool and precious to you. And I saw through that, the smoke and mirrors that the music industry really is at that high level. Half the time we're looking at these artists, oh, they're so great or whatever, when really it's just like a bunch of fake followers that they bought with some bots and put them on some strategic positions to make them look like they're having an amazing career, but behind, closed doors, they're scrambling to figure out how they're going to financially make it all work, right?
Yeah, you've been there.
And I've been there. And you have to realize that at the end of the day, it really is about the art and, like you said, the connection with the fans. And when I started touring with Sumo Cyco, I was able to meet every single person that had pledged to that campaign and came out and drove 2 hours to the show. And I got to talk to them and hear about their story and how they, discovered the band. And we got to rock out where I was seeing their faces inches from mine with the lyrics that I had just written and how it meant to them. And one small just story, if I may, was one time we befriended a school teacher as a fan in Germany. And he invited us to come to Germany and play for his students at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Yes, I don't know if you guys are a 9 a.m. band.
Yeah, and we created at this high school a mosh pit at 9 a.m. with a bunch of high school kids. And they sang back the song to us because he had taught them the lyrics as an English class lesson, was the lyrics to one of our songs. And I just thought, wow, if I had stopped, when I, didn't have a huge team and all this stuff, this would never have been possible. And how cool is it that I'm here and, in another country with all these kids singing along to my song is such a cool experience. So you just never know what's around the corner.
I'm so glad you didn't become bitter or cynical in the long run. I'm happy you found your way to knowing what real art is and what real connection is. I think it's a very, very rare story, Skye, and I think it's a very inspiring story to a lot of people. And it's really lovely to meet you. And congrats on Sumo Cyco and congrats on the new record. It's really excellent.
Oh, thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate the time today. Thanks for sitting down with me.